The Man in the Alley. The shortcut Sana, a 23-year-old student, had just finished a late-night shift at her cafe job. It was past 11:30 p.m. when she left, the streets of Lahore unusually quiet. To save time, she decided to take the narrow alley behind the market, a shortcut she often used. The alley was dim, its flickering yellow bulbs barely pushing back the darkness. The distant hum of traffic seemed muted here, like she'd stepped into another world. Halfway through, she realized she wasn't alone. A tall man stood at the far end, half in shadow, half in light. He was leaning against the wall, hands buried in the pockets of his long coat. His face was obscured, but his head tilted slightly when she entered, as if he'd been waiting for her. Sana's pulse quickened. She told herself not to panic. Strangers passed through here all the time. She kept walking, clutching her bag tighter, her heels clicking against the damp pavement. Then came a sound that froze her mid-step. The man began humming, a slow, tuneless hum that echoed strangely in the narrow alley. And the melody. It was the same lullaby her mother used to sing to her as a child. The unwanted encounter. Sana's chest tightened. She hadn't heard that lullaby in over a decade, yet this man hummed it as if he knew. She quickened her pace, head down, praying he'd ignore her. But as she passed, he stepped forward. His shoes scraped against the wet ground, and the humming stopped abruptly. "Late night for you, isn't it?" His voice was calm, too calm, with a rasp like dry leaves. Sana forced a smile. "Yeah, just heading home." She didn't stop walking, but the man began to follow. His footsteps matched hers, deliberately slow. "You always take this alley," he said. Her blood ran cold. She had never seen him before. Trying not to show fear, she replied shakily, "I think you're mistaking me for someone else." He chuckled. "No mistake. I've seen you many nights." The alley stretched endlessly, the exit feeling miles away. Sana's breathing grew shallow as she clutched her phone, wishing it wasn't at 2% battery. The man's voice drifted closer. "Do you remember what your mother used to sing? That song about the stars?" Sana froze. He couldn't know that. He shouldn't know that. And when she finally dared to glance back, he was grinning. The wrong turn. Panic surged. Sana bolted, her shoes splashing against puddles. The alley twisted left, then right, and she sprinted blindly, praying to see an open street. But the walls seemed taller, the lights dimmer, the way ahead narrowing unnaturally. Behind her, the man didn't run. His slow footsteps echoed steadily, impossibly close, as though he didn't need to hurry. Her phone buzzed in her hand, one last bar of battery. She dialed her friend's number, whispering frantically, "Pick up, pick up." The call connected, but all she heard was that same humming. The lullaby, not from behind her, through the phone. She dropped it in shock, the device clattering across the pavement. The alley split into two paths. She turned right, heart pounding. But when she skidded around the corner, he was already there, standing, smiling, waiting. Sana stumbled backward, chest heaving. "What do you want from me?" she cried. The man tilted his head. His eyes glinted unnaturally in the flickering light. "I want to take you home." The closing trap. Her instincts screamed to run, but her legs felt heavy. She forced herself to dash left, the air in the alley turning colder with each step. This time she didn't look back. She couldn't. But the alley ahead began to shift. The walls closed in tighter and tighter, until she was forced to slow. The path funneled into a dead end. She spun around. The man stood at the entrance, blocking her escape. His shadow stretched unnaturally long across the brick wall, twitching like it moved on its own. Sana's throat went dry. "Stay away!" she shouted, grabbing a loose brick from the ground, holding it up like a weapon. The man laughed softly. "Brave, just like her." Her mind reeled. "Like who?" He stepped closer, the air thick with that metallic smell of rust. "Like your mother." Sana's grip loosened on the brick as her knees weakened. He shouldn't know that. He couldn't know that. The man leaned forward, whispering words that froze her blood. She tried to run too. The final escape. Sana pressed against the cold wall, tears burning her eyes. The stranger was only a few feet away now, his coat dripping, that eerie grin never fading. Summoning every ounce of strength, she hurled the brick at him. It struck his shoulder with a sickening thud, but instead of stumbling, he only laughed louder, the sound echoing off the alley walls. In that moment, adrenaline took over. Sana darted past him, brushing against his arm, the contact icy cold. She sprinted with everything she had, not daring to stop. Behind her, the humming resumed, louder now, chasing her like a nightmare she couldn't outrun. Finally, the alley opened into the main street. Bright headlights blinded her as a rickshaw passed by. She waved frantically, screaming. The driver stopped, confused, as she leapt in, slamming the door shut. "Go. Please, just go," she begged. The driver sped off, through the back window. Sana looked once more at the alley. The man was standing at the edge, watching, still humming, and though the rickshaw rattled further away, she swore she could still hear the lullaby in her ears. The taxi stranger. The ride begins. It was past midnight in Karachi, and Bilal, a junior architect, had just left his friend's apartment. The streets were unusually empty, the air heavy with humidity and the faint smell of sea breeze. When he opened his ride-hailing app, no cars were nearby, so he waved down an old battered taxi instead. The driver was an elderly man, gaunt with hollow cheeks and deep-set eyes. His white kurta was wrinkled, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted the rearview mirror. "Clifton by," Bilal said, sliding into the back seat. The driver didn't reply. He just started the car, its engine growling like a wounded animal. They moved silently through the streets, neon lights flickering past. At first, Bilal didn't think much of it, scrolling on his phone. But after 10 minutes, something felt off. They weren't heading toward Clifton. "By, wrong way," Bilal leaned forward. The driver's eyes met his through the mirror, dark, glassy, unblinking. "Don't worry," the old man finally rasped. "I know a shortcut." Bilal's stomach tightened. The road ahead was narrow, lined with crumbling buildings and no signs of life. The meter ticked on, but it wasn't just charging money. It felt like it was counting down. The conversation turns. Bilal forced a nervous laugh. "Shortcut? I've lived here my whole life. Never seen this road." The driver smiled faintly, lips cracked. "Most people don't. Only those who ride with me." The words chilled him. He checked his phone. No signal, of course. He shifted uneasily, debating whether to jump out. But the car kept moving deeper into the broken streets, where shadows seemed to gather unnaturally around the corners. Suddenly, the driver spoke again. "You remind me of someone." Bilal stiffened. "Who?" "My son," the man said softly. "He sat in that very seat. Years ago. He never made it home." Bilal's heart hammered. "I'm sorry to hear that." The driver chuckled, low and dry. "Don't be. He's still with me. Always." As if on cue, the rearview mirror shifted on its own. For a split second, Bilal saw movement in the back seat behind him. A pale figure. A boy's reflection. Bilal whipped around. No one. Only empty leather seats. When he looked back at the driver, the man's smile had widened and his eyes didn't blink. "Do you believe in unfinished journeys?" he asked. The passengers fear Bilal's skin prickled with sweat despite the humid night. He gripped the door handle, testing it quietly, but it didn't budge. The child lock was on. His breath quickened. "Look, Bhai, please just drop me at the main road. I'll pay extra," he pleaded. The driver's knuckles whitened around the wheel. "It's not about the fare. It's about the ride." The streets outside grew stranger. The buildings leaned inward, their windows broken like eyes watching. The lamps flickered, then went out completely. Only the weak headlights guided them. Bilal's heart thudded so loud he thought it filled the car. Then came a sound, breathing. Not his, not the driver's. It came from the seat beside him. Shallow, wheezing breaths. Bilal's head snapped sideways. For a moment, he swore he saw the faint outline of someone sitting there, small, thin, like a boy no older than 12. His voice cracked. "Who's there?" The driver smiled, never looking away from the road. "He likes you. He hasn't had company in a long time." The breathing grew louder, rasping, desperate. Bilal pressed himself against the opposite door, shaking, and then cold fingers brushed against his arm. The road that shouldn't exist. Bilal gasped, jerking away, but his back hit the door. The taxi suddenly lurched, as if the road had vanished beneath them. The city was gone. Outside was nothing but endless, barren fields, stretching into darkness. No houses, no people, just a dirt path leading nowhere. Where are we?" Bilal stammered. The driver finally looked at him fully through the mirror. His pupils were unnaturally wide, swallowing the whites of his eyes. "We're almost there. Where all rides end." Bilal's chest tightened with dread. He tried the window, it wouldn't roll down. Panic surged. He kicked at the door, but it didn't budge. The driver began to hum, low and tuneless. The same lullaby mothers sing to restless children. And then, from the seat beside him, a small voice joined in, soft, broken, out of breath. Bilal's scream caught in his throat as the faint outline of the boy appeared more clearly now. Hollow eyes, gaunt face, lips blue like he'd drowned. The car rattled faster down the dirt path, the world outside warping as though reality itself was twisting. And then Bilal saw it up ahead, a broken sign with faded letters. It read, "Last stop. The escape." The car slowed near the sign. The driver's voice softened. "This is where he gets out. And tonight, maybe you too." The boy's cold hand clutched Bilal's wrist, weak but unrelenting. Panic surged through him. He knew he had only one chance. Summoning every ounce of adrenaline, Bilal kicked hard at the window. Glass cracked. Again, harder. The pane shattered, shards cutting into his leg as he threw himself out of the moving taxi. He tumbled onto the dirt road, rolling violently until he hit the ground with a painful thud. His lungs burned as he scrambled up. The taxi slowed but didn't stop. The driver leaned out, face twisted in that eerie grin. "Next time, son. Next time." The boy's hollow eyes peered from the back seat as the car vanished into the dark fields. Bilal stumbled back toward the city lights he could barely see in the distance. Every step felt like a lifetime, until finally he reached the main road, collapsing near a petrol pump. The attendant rushed to him, confused, asking, "Pai, where did you come from?" "There's nothing out there," Bilal turned, shaking. The road behind him was gone. There was no dirt path, no taxi, only silence. The woman at the window, the night knock. Aisha lived alone in her flat on the 4th floor of a quiet Islamabad apartment building. It was a rainy Saturday night, and she had just made tea, settling near her window to scroll through her phone. The steady drumming of rain against the glass was comforting, almost enough to drown out the loneliness. Then came the knock, not from the door, from the window. Aisha froze. Slowly she looked up. The window was shut, raindrops streaking down the glass. And yet, 3 sharp knocks echoed again, clear and deliberate. She rushed over, heart pounding. But the window opened onto nothing but open air. No balcony, no ledge, just 4 stories of emptiness below. She pressed her face closer to the glass, searching the darkness. That's when she saw it. A pale handprint smeared against the outside of her window. It hadn't been there moments ago. Aisha stumbled back, nearly spilling her tea. Her phone buzzed just then. A WhatsApp notification. Unknown number. The message made her blood run cold. "You left the curtains open. I can see you." The stranger's voice. Aisha slammed the curtains shut, panic rising in her chest. She tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was a prank. But who would climb 4 floors in the rain just to scare her? The phone buzzed again. Another message. "Don't hide. I like watching you drink tea. Her throat went dry. She hadn't mentioned tea to anyone. Trembling, she dialed her best friend Sana, but the line cut out after 2 rings. The rain outside grew heavier, masking other sounds, until she heard it, a low, dragging voice. "Let me in." It wasn't on the phone. It came from the window. She pulled the curtain just a little. Lightning flashed, illuminating the glass. A face stared back, gaunt, soaked hair clinging to its cheeks, eyes wide and unblinking. Aisha gasped, stumbling back, phone falling to the floor. But when the thunder rolled and she looked again, the window was empty. Her phone buzzed once more. A new message appeared. "Why did you move away? Don't you want to see me smile?" The intruder's shadow. Aisha's heart pounded so loud it drowned out her thoughts. She dashed to her front door, bolting it shut, though she knew whoever this was hadn't come from the hall. Still, the idea of being trapped made her feel suffocated. She turned every light on in her flat, forcing brightness into every corner. But light doesn't chase shadows, it only makes them sharper. And soon she noticed one shadow that didn't belong. On the far wall near her bookshelf, a tall silhouette stretched unnaturally long. But there was nothing in the room to cast it. Her breath hitched. She whispered shakily, "Who are you?" The shadow moved, not like a flicker, but a slow, deliberate step. Toward her, Aisha screamed, grabbing a heavy vase and hurling it at the wall. It shattered, the shadow vanished. She pressed against the corner, sobbing quietly. Just then, her phone buzzed again, lying cracked on the floor. The message chilled her to her core. "That wasn't very nice. You almost hit me." Desperate, Aisha called building security. But when she explained, the guard laughed nervously. "Baji, it's raining cats and dogs. No one can climb up there. Must be kids joking." She hung up, shaking. Kids don't leave wet handprints on 4th-floor windows. Determined to survive the night, she locked herself in her bedroom, pushing a chair against the door. She grabbed a small Quran from her bedside drawer and held it close, whispering verses to calm herself. The storm raged outside, thunder booming, wind rattling the glass. She closed her eyes, praying she'd wake up and it would all be over, but then knock not from the door, not from the window, from inside the room. Her head snapped up. She scanned every corner, but the room was empty. Another knock, this time from the wardrobe. Her breath caught. Slowly, the wardrobe door creaked open on its own. She clutched the Quran tighter, backing away. A voice hissed from the darkness within. "I told you not to hide." The morning after. Aisha didn't remember fainting, but when she woke, sunlight streamed through her curtains. Her body ached from the floor where she had collapsed, Quran still clutched tightly in her hand. For a moment, relief washed over her. Maybe it had been a dream. Maybe the storm had played tricks on her mind. But then she saw it. The wardrobe door was wide open. Inside, on the wood panel, smeared handprints trailed downward. Not in dust, but in wet streaks of mud, or something darker. Her phone lay nearby, the screen cracked but still glowing faintly. She picked it up with trembling hands. A new message blinked on the screen, time-stamped at 4:03 a.m. "You look peaceful when you sleep," her stomach lurched. She dropped the phone, rushing to her window for air. But when she pulled the curtains open, her scream tore through the quiet morning. The pale face was still there, pressed against the glass, smiling. The man in the bus shelter, the waiting stranger. It was close to midnight when Bilal missed his last bus home from Lahore Kant station. The streets were unusually empty, except for the faint hum of streetlights and the distant barking of stray dogs. He cursed under his breath, heading towards a small bus shelter near the road. The rain had just started to drizzle, making the air damp and cold. The shelter was dimly lit, its old fluorescent bulb flickering weakly. At first glance, Bilal thought it was empty, but then he noticed him. A tall man sat at the far corner, head bowed, hands folded on his knees. Rocking slightly back and forth, Bilal hesitated but stepped inside. The rain was getting heavier, and he didn't have much of a choice. He sat down at the opposite end, trying to avoid eye contact. The man suddenly stopped rocking. Slowly, his head turned toward Bilal. His face was obscured by shadows, but Bilal could see the faint glint of his eyes. Then, in a low, raspy voice, the stranger spoke. "You're late tonight," Bilal's breath caught. He had never seen this man before. The disturbing smile, Bilal tried to laugh it off, forcing a smile. "Yeah, missed my bus." His voice cracked more than he'd intended. The stranger didn't answer at first. He simply stared, his shoulders rising and falling slowly as if each breath was deliberate. Then his mouth curled into a slow, unnatural grin. "I've been waiting for you." Bilal's blood froze. He shifted uncomfortably, telling himself this man was probably drunk or insane. But the way he said it, it wasn't slurred, it wasn't random. It was purposeful. Trying to remain calm, Bilal pulled out his phone, pretending to scroll. He could feel the man's gaze drilling into him. The rain pounded harder against the roof of the shelter, masking the silence between them. Then Bilal heard it. A wet, sticky sound, like something being dragged across the floor. He looked down. The man's shoes were soaked, not just with rain, but with something dark that trailed from beneath his seat. Bilal's chest tightened. He rose slowly, edging toward the shelter's exit. The stranger's grin widened, revealing teeth that looked too many, too sharp. "Leaving already?" he whispered. The pursuit, Bilal bolted out into the rain, heart hammering. His footsteps splashed against the flooded street, but the sound that followed made his stomach drop. Another set of footsteps, heavier, deliberate, closing in. He didn't dare look back at first. The streets were deserted, the rain relentless, every shadow stretching longer under the flickering street lamps. When he finally glanced over his shoulder, the man from the shelter was there. He wasn't running. He was walking. Slow, steady, but somehow always just a few steps closer than before. His soaked clothes clung to his tall frame, his pale grin unbroken. "Bilal." The stranger's voice echoed unnaturally through the rain. "I told you. I've been waiting." Bilal's lungs burned as he sprinted, fumbling for his phone to call someone, anyone. But when he unlocked it, the screen flashed static, then black. No signal. A chill went through him as he realized the street he was on had no familiar landmarks. He had walked this way dozens of times, but now the alleys twisted wrong, as if the city itself was shifting, and the man was closer. The vanishing city. Bilal's panic grew as he stumbled through the rain-slicked streets, every turn leading him deeper into unfamiliar alleys. Shop signs were in strange, faded fonts, windows boarded up and doors sealed tight. It was as if he had slipped into another version of Lahore, an abandoned, distorted copy. The sound of footsteps never stopped. Slow, deliberate, echoing behind him no matter how far he ran. Finally, he ducked into a narrow alley, chest heaving. He pressed his back against the wall, rain dripping from his hair. For a brief moment, silence, then tap, tap, tap. He looked down. Wet footprints appeared on the ground, one by one, leading toward him. But the alley was empty. A voice whispered directly behind his ear. "You can't hide." Bilal spun around, swinging wildly, but there was nothing. His heart nearly stopped as he realized his reflection in the rainwater at his feet was no longer his own. The distorted reflection grinned back at him. It was the stranger's face. The last bus, Bilal stumbled out of the alley, desperate, shaking, drenched to the bone. The world around him blurred, buildings vanishing into fog. Then through the haze, headlights appeared. A bus relief flooded him as he waved frantically, rushing forward. The bus screeched to a halt, its doors opening with a hiss. Without thinking, he scrambled inside. The interior was dim, the seats old and torn. Only one passenger sat at the back. Bilal's chest tightened when he saw who it was. The same man, grinning. Bilal turned to leap out, but the bus doors had already closed. The driver, face hidden in shadows, pulled away without a word. Bilal's screams echoed through the empty streets. drowned by the roar of the engine and the pounding rain, and as the bus disappeared into the fog, the shelter's old fluorescent bulb flickered once more. A tall, smiling man sat waiting in the corner again for the next one. The taxi ride home. The unsettling driver. It was almost 1 a.m. when Saad finally managed to book a ride home after a late shift in Karachi. The streets were unusually quiet, the usual chaos of horns and vendors replaced with an eerie silence. A white Suzuki Alto pulled up, headlights cutting through the fog that rolled across the empty road. The driver didn't greet him when he got in. He didn't even glance back, just nodded stiffly and started driving. His hands gripped the wheel tightly, knuckles pale under the dim glow of the dashboard lights. Saad tried to ease the tension. "Traffic's lighter this time, huh?" No reply. Just a faint grunt. The farther they drove, the more Saad realized something was wrong. The driver wasn't following the GPS. They were heading into unfamiliar streets, narrower and darker than the main road. "Bhai, Sai route galat hai," Saad said firmly. This time the driver spoke softly, almost whispering. "You'll see why I chose this way." A chill spread across Saad's chest. He looked down at the driver's hand on the gear stick. His nails were black as though rotting, and his skin looked cracked. The wrong turn. Saad's unease grew as the car turned onto an abandoned industrial road. Rusted warehouses lined the path, their windows shattered, graffiti scrawled across the walls. The streetlights here were dead, leaving the car's headlights as the only source of illumination. "Stop the car," Saad ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'll get down here." The driver didn't stop. He didn't even acknowledge him. His breathing grew heavier, raspy, filling the silence. Saad's fingers hovered over the door handle, ready to jump out if needed. Then the driver chuckled, a low guttural sound that sent shivers down his spine. "You shouldn't have sat in my car," he murmured. Saad's heart hammered. He glanced at his phone. No signal. Battery at 3%. His throat tightened. The driver suddenly made a sharp turn into a dirt road leading deeper into the industrial area. The car jostled violently, and Saad's head nearly slammed against the window. When he looked outside, his blood ran cold. In the distance, under the pale glow of the moon, were rows of abandoned taxis, lined up like graves, and in each one, a shadowy figure sat perfectly still behind the wheel. The silent passengers. Saad's breath caught as the car slowed near the eerie row of taxis. Their cracked windshields reflected the moonlight, but what froze his blood was the occupants. Every taxi had a driver inside, unmoving, faces shadowed but distinctly human in outline. "Who are they?" Saad whispered without meaning to. The driver finally turned his head slightly, revealing half his face. His skin sagged as if decaying, one eye cloudy and lifeless. "They were like you once," he rasped. "Late-night riders. Now they're passengers forever." Saad's instincts screamed to run. He yanked the door handle, but it didn't budge. The lock clicked audibly, sealing him in. The driver's grin widened, his teeth black and jagged. "You'll sit in one too tonight." Saad pounded the window, but the figures in the taxis didn't move. Their heads remained bowed, like corpses waiting in silence. The car stopped. The driver turned fully now, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Your seat is ready." Before Saad could scream, the engine cut off. The silence was suffocating. The escape attempt. Adrenaline surged through Saad. He kicked at the door with all his strength, the glass rattling. Desperation fueled him, and finally the door swung open. He bolted into the night, shoes splashing in the mud. Behind him the driver didn't chase. Instead, Saad heard the engines of the other taxis roar to life one by one, their headlights flickering on in unison. He turned in horror. The silent drivers were no longer slumped. They were sitting upright, all their pale faces turned toward him. "Run!" The first driver's voice echoed unnaturally across the lot. Saad sprinted, lungs burning, weaving between the rows of taxis. Every headlight turned as he passed. Every engine growled louder. It was as if the cars themselves were alive, hunting him. He spotted a chain-link fence at the far end and rushed toward it. But when he reached it, the metal was cold, slick with something that smelled like blood. Behind him, multiple doors slammed open. Footsteps followed. Dozens of them. He didn't dare look back. The final passenger Saad scrambled up the fence, cutting his palms on the jagged wire. He threw himself over and landed hard on the other side, pain shooting through his ankle. Limping, he staggered toward the main road where faint traffic lights glowed in the distance. Relief nearly overwhelmed him when he saw a motorbike approaching. He waved desperately. The rider slowed, helmet gleaming under the moonlight. "Please help me," Saad cried, breathless. The rider lifted his visor. His face was pale, eyes hollow. It was the same driver. Saad stumbled back, terror clawing at his chest. He turned, but now the industrial lot behind him was gone. No taxis, no fence, just an empty stretch of road. The rider leaned closer, whispering through cracked lips. "There's no escaping." "You already sat in my car." The sound of multiple engines roared around them, though no vehicles could be seen. Saad felt cold hands grip his shoulders from behind. He screamed, then silence. The next morning, a white Alto was seen parked neatly at the shelter. Inside sat a new driver, motionless. And if you looked closely in the back seat, Saad was there too.